We're joined by two crucial people in the world of Formula One. Red Bull Racing team principal Christian Horner and 1995 British Grand Prix winner Johnny Herbert, who was actually wearing his race steward's hat for the last two Grand Prix for the FIA. Johnny, making some interesting decisions. How did it go?
Yeah, well, not too bad. There weren't too many decisions to make. It was quite a trouble-free couple of weekends, to be honest.
Trouble-free for you. How's it been for you, Christian?
No, it's been an interesting start to the year. I mean, I think both races have been good races, particularly for the fans. And, you know, we enjoyed a good race with the McLarens in Australia. Then the weather, you know, got involved in the last weekend. And when that happens, then it's usually, you know, can produce some interesting results, which is exactly what we had, you know, in Malaysia.
Are you surprised by how tough it's been?
I think that we could see through the winter testing that the grid has concertinaed, and there's been some surprising performances from some of the middle-ranking teams that have really made some great progress over the winter. I mean, Williams have been showing a real turn of speed in the first couple of races, and of course, you know, Sauber, particularly with Sergio Perez in that last race, was a tremendous performance. And
good for the fans. Do you think you're reaching the point where actually you're starting to understand this car? Second position for Vettel in Australia was fantastic. Didn't really work out for him in Malaysia.
No, I think that, you know, Australia was an interesting race for us. I think that regulations have changed this year. There's some factors that have you know, differed from last year that we're starting to get an understanding of. And there seems to be a sweet spot with these tyres as well. We've been very competitive in the races. We've just lacked that little bit of performance over a single lap, and that's something, you know, that all the guys and girls are very focused on in the factory at the moment.
Johnny, you watched it from the steward's room. What have you made of what you've seen so far?
Well, I think it's like Christian said. I think the key has been the way the tyres are, because Christian says they're struggling a little bit in qualifying, but the race is good. Mercedes, it's the complete opposite, and I think that's what's making it quite interesting this year, and we have to see what happens in China and beyond. OK,
plenty more to talk to about to you two. Packed hour, here's what's coming up. Going to talk about Sebastian Vettel and his start to the season. Of course we are, but let's talk first of all about Mark Webber. How impressed are you with the way that he's handled those first two races?
I think Mark's had, you know, two strong first, you know, Grand Prix this season. He's wintered well. He's tested in pre-season, you know, very competitively. And I think the tonic of winning that final race at the end of 2011 was just the boost that he needed. And his qualifying performances have been strong. He was a little unlucky through, you know, the pit stops in Malaysia. Being the first team in the pit lane, we had to hold him for about 5 seconds, where he lost, you know, quite a bit of ground to Fernando and Lewis. But no, he's driven very well, and his confidence seems, you know, well and truly intact.
Did he feel like he had a point to prove coming into this season after what happened last season?
I'm sure inevitably, you know, he did. I mean, Sebastian had the most dominant of years last year, and of course, you know, when you're sitting in the same equipment, for any sportsman, for any driver, that is difficult to take. But you know, Mark is, you know, he's an absolutely ruthless competitor. He's, you know, committed himself totally to his training, to his preparation for this year, and come out of the starting blocks this season very strongly. And I think hopefully he can build a strong campaign off the start that he's had.
So that's Mark. What about Sebastian Vettel's start to the season? What have you made of that?
Well, I think Sebastian, I mean, his first race in Australia was exceptional. The passing move he made around the outside of Nico Rosberg, you know, was excellent. And then we were a little bit fortuitous with the safety car, but even so, his pace was very strong in that first Grand Prix in Australia. So to get a podium, to get a second place was more than we expected after qualifying. And then again, just a little unlucky. He was set for a good result in Malaysia, when unfortunately, you know, the incident with the back marker, you know, cost him, you know, 12 valuable points and 10 valuable points for the team. But you know, Seb isn't totally happy with the car, certainly on a Saturday. And you know, there's a few things hopefully in the pipeline that will help him with that. But you know, on a Sunday, he's been very competitive.
We mentioned it briefly there. Let's join Johnny and Ted. They're going to analyse last weekend's big talking point. What was going on? There are reports all over the place about what might have happened with this team radio and the disobeying orders and whatnot. What actually happened?
Well, first of all, after the restart, we lost radio contact with Sebastian. We could see he was trying to use the radio, but the radio unfortunately wasn't working. So all those messages were with a hope that you know, they would get through to him. But basically, what the sequence of events was that after the impact with Carthagena, the tyre delaminating damaged the left rear braking cooling duct, and that brake and corner of the car started to go into a thermal runaway. So from a safety point of view, we were genuinely concerned that, you know, there could be a catastrophic failure, could throw him into a nasty spin or accident. So at that point we were saying, you know, he should stop the car. Sebastian was managing the situation pretty well. He was aware of what was going on. He could feel that the brake pedal was going long from what he said to us after the race. And of course then Maldonado retires, and you've got one lap to go, and so you think, okay, well let's stay out. Let's see if something else happens. Then there's a potentially point on offer here. But then the temperatures continue to increase, and that was when we said, come on, okay, right, let's see if we can get him to stop the car, because we just don't want to take any risk with his safety. But those messages unfortunately didn't get through the car. Sebastian, as it turned out, didn't really use the brakes at all on that last lap, and was keen to see the checkered flag. It's
important to remember that Red Bull Racing are a bit sensitive about brake failures ever since, I think it was Mark Webber's in Singapore a couple of years ago, and you don't want to, you're a bit sensitive around that. I think the biggest story for me is Sebastian afterwards. He wasn't particularly complimentary about Carthagena. He called him a gherkin or a cucumber, whatever it is. In German, he likened him to an idiot in the English language, losing his cool a bit.
I mean, Sebastian, you know, these guys get a microphone shoved in front of them just after he's effectively lost a fourth-place position, and of course, you know, he was annoyed. He vented his frustration, but you know, it's one of those things. I think that you know, any driver in that situation would be, you know, totally annoyed with the situation. Obviously, the stewards, you know, deemed that Narain was in the wrong and dealt with it accordingly. But yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody could blame Sebastian for being a bit frustrated in that situation.
Have you spoken to him since? What's he had to say? What have you said to him?
Oh, he was in the factory on Tuesday working on the simulator, and you know, even half an hour after the race, you know, the driver's sitting in a debrief that goes on for about an hour and a half. You know, he cooled down about it. He obviously frustrated. He was driving very well. He was closing in on Lewis, and of course, you know, he was wanting to finish the race, you know, in a positive manner, and there were, you know, a lot of points on offer there. But unfortunately, Narain, it looked like he was in his own race with the Marussia car. Yeah. You know, contact happened, and unfortunately, it effectively caused an instantaneous puncture. The valve on the tyre effectively you know, collapsed, and you know, one of those things. I
mean, Johnny, can you understand it? You know, you say you're Sebastian Vettel, you've just won 2 World Championships, congratulations, but you're coming into a third year where you're going for the triple, and suddenly things aren't going your way. Can you understand his frustration?
Well, I think it would happen even if it was in his championship year, because I think it's just you're so in the moment and you're wanting it to do well. Yes, he's trying to achieve his sort of 3rd World Championship, but I think at the end of the day, it's something that it doesn't always go your way. And frustration we've seen in the past with many other drivers. I remember a very angry Michael Schumacher running into a certain Mercedes or McLaren, sorry, garage at the time. So we've seen it before. It's something we try, and I think we all try and avoid and talk to the driver to try and calm it down. But I think it's just something that in the moment, like Christian said, it's something that they come out, and then after it, he'll probably have a look on TV and say, maybe I shouldn't have done this or that. And I'm sure he will grow and get better on that.
He seemed calm enough at the airport because he helped me with my luggage.
Did he? What, all 6 cases?
Yeah, there were a few. You don't travel light, do you, in Formula One? This is what I'm discovering as we go along on this merry journey.
Well, he chilled out by that time. Good old Seb.
Yeah, he was a calmer Sebastian then. Okay, let's get an update on this. Are you still trying to get this banned?
There's been an awful lot of debate about this, and believe me, it's not just Red Bull. I think there's, you know, half the paddock that have been looking at this. I mean, first of all, it's a very clever device, and hats off for Mercedes for you know, integrating this into their car. It sits, in our opinion, in quite a grey area of the regulations, and whilst it's been deemed so far to be okay, we just want that clarity going forward before pursuing it, committing resource, finance and cost, you know, to a system like this.
So where are you at now?
Moving forward. Well, Charlie, there were several discussions with him over the weekend. Charlie Whiting, the technical delegate, you know, he's been taking it all into consideration. I think he wanted to have a good think about it, and we'll, of course, we'll respect his position when you know, he makes that clear to us in China. And then the teams are faced with, you know, alternatives. Either accept it and get on with it, and maybe look at your own solution if that fits your car. You've got the opportunity to protest if we were to feel, or any other team were to feel that you know, we didn't agree with Charlie's interpretation.
So you're waiting, are you, to see what FIA race director Charlie Whiting says before you build your own?
I think that yes, I mean, clarifications have been requested, you know, from the FIA as to whether they will continue in future races to deem this as a permissible device. So you know, we'll see what response comes back.
Aren't you going to lose time though whilst arguing the point?
You must have started developing your own. Adrian must have his own on the drawing board.
I think that, you know, as with you know, all devices like this, is how it interacts with the rest of the car. And of course, I'm sure all designers, certainly at the front end of the grid, have been looking at you know, how the device works, how you would incorporate it into your own design. But before we pursue you know, constructing parts and expense to it, for us it's quite important to know that yes, it's going to be permissible for the rest of the year. And quite often we see technical clarifications come out that deem things to be you're not in compliance with the regs.
Innovation's everything though, isn't it, Johnny, in F1?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think, you know, it's a wonderful system. I always liked the original F-Duck when we had that, and I think it's such a shame in some regard. Hopefully we lose those little innovative things that come into Formula One, because that's what it's all about. So it's a tough call, because obviously it's sort of deemed at the moment to be strictly legal. They're the only car that has it at the moment or can utilise it. Now we've got to see exactly where it goes forward, but I'm sure you're working on it.
Well, it is an interesting point in that it hasn't actually done Mercedes any favours during the race. Maybe there hasn't been a result that you can protest, because you're not going to gain anything if they get chucked out, and you need to really take it to the Court of Appeal, is that right, so that your lawyers can get stuck into it?
I think that's the process. If it were to go that route, then yes, you protest, the stewards would hear you know, the debate, rule either way, and then either party's got the right to appeal their decision. We hope it doesn't, you know, go down that route. And it's a clever idea. I mean, as I say, hats off to Mercedes. It's something that we believe has been going on even perhaps last year to a lesser degree. And I think before we all charge off in that direction, as with so many of these devices, like F-Duct, like double diffusers, like so many other devices that end up getting banned, we just want to make sure that this is something that is going to be around for the rest of the season. And if that is the way it is, then obviously we'll pursue our own routes if we think it adds performance to our car.
Busy time for you, busy time for your fan club as well, because they've been in touch with us today because they knew you were coming on the F1 show. So they've sent us in some badges. Sorry, Ted. I don't know how aware you are of these. I don't know which one to give you or which to walk away with. Maybe a keep calm and think of Christian badge.
Thank you very much.
How about that?
I think we'll give that
Johnny,
to Johnny.
there you go. You can have one too.
I'm going to take a keep calm and think of Christian and give that to Sebastian Vettel. The next time I think of him, he needs to.
I'm going to have a Hornet
badge. He really needs to remain calm the next time. The next time he gets into an argument with a back marker.
Okay.
Brilliant.
There we go. Pride of place. Wonderful. Christian, thanks very much indeed, and best of luck for China as well.
Thank you very much.